Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
My goal is to get your position coordinated.
Yeah, so okay, look, I'm Muslim, right?
Yeah, but that's my goal. So I will never get tricked. If ever a trick is going on, my thing is I'm getting you on your position.
Okay, so if I tell you my position, then you'll be happy with that. Is that job done for you?
If it's well, if it's true, yeah.
Okay, so the word Muslim in Arabic means someone who submits their will to God.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good start.
We attempt to do that by basically following the rules of Islam,
Yeah.
which we believe was crystallized upon the final message, which is the Quran, which is sent to the Prophet Muhammad, who's the final messenger, in the long line of messengers, with all the same message: to believe in one God and worship in one God.
So what I was trying to do, changing your position previously, is like you call yourself a Muslim, but I think that's wrong. And then you said you submit your will to God, and I think that's a valid way of living life.
Okay.
However, I think the definition of God is wrong. Could you say God inspired Shakespeare
To do what?
to write his plays?
Well, I mean, I think that.
And therefore, sorry to interrupt, and therefore to say his writings were the word of God.
No, you couldn't say that. I mean that second part, we couldn't say it's the word of God. But you could say his actions were created by God.
Inspired by God.
I mean, we would go further and say created by God I mean, there's a verse in the Quran that says that God created you وَمَا تَعْمَلُونَ, and what you have done. So in other words, every credit that every human being has, like any invention that has ever been invented or any kind of design that's ever been designed, yeah, God is to credit for that in a sense.
That's what I mean. So that's what I wanted to do with your position of calling yourself Muslim, is you're limiting your understanding of God and what you can what you can ascribe to God. Because maybe we could actually unite under the idea that God is a force or something, but to call him Allah is wrong. To be able to understand it is wrong.
So why are you using the word wrong? I mean, what's wrong about it in your opinion?
It prevents people coming together.
Why is it that you believe that humanity ought to come together under one belief?
Because then we can, well, in the search of truth. I think it's true to talk in the way that I'm talking.
Why?
Because I'm using very simple steps and very simple understandings.
No, but what I mean is, like, who has made humanity uniting upon one belief system the ultimate goal?
Alan Turing, the person who did the Enigma machine, he did work in mathematics, and he understood the universal computing, which means that all logical language is universal. Yeah? So therefore, if we ever have rationale, we're computing on the same language.
Yeah.
So therefore, that is the driving factor which unites us all.
Okay, I can see where you're coming from with that particular analogy, because you're saying that if we all operate with something like, and that was the intention behind science, I think, with Karl Popper when he came forward and he said, when he attempted, I think it was a conscientious attempt to strip away ideological bias from the scientific method. And obviously the same thing can be said about maths, so that anyone, anywhere can operate within the rules of these paradigms and come to very similar conclusions. But the issue is, when we apply this to morality, it doesn't work. Because unlike science and maths, morality is by definition defined by an ideological presupposition of some sort. So how do you kind of get past this problem, and how can you give us a way to objectify morality in such a way as that we can find out the ultimate truth of morality, so that we can all unite upon it? How would you do that?
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll take a leaf out of Sam Harris's explanations. He says, to define morality, all we have to say is that the worst possible suffering is the worst thing. Any direction away from suffering is a good way of morality. And we can detect, if we can ever detect suffering using technology, then we could say stabbing someone is not a good morality, because it would cause suffering. We detect it and we measure it. So then we can start becoming more and more complex You understand?
So you're talking about consequentialism, yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
All right, but if you read Sam Harris, his book, and what he says, I think it's more moral landscape, yeah, and what he says in that book.
Yeah.
And other books, he mentions almost, I'll try and quote exactly what he says. He says that there is no neuroscientific way to identify what morality is. Yeah. So in other words, in his view, in his worldview, his paradigm, which is the atheistic paradigm, even Sam Harris himself, he admits that there is no way to create an objective morality.
Yeah.
So from that angle, although he does believe in consequentialism as a matter of utility, I think that the presupposition in his mind is a utility presupposition, which is kind of like a Benthian utilitarian presupposition, which itself has to be objective. It has to be created as an objective morality before we can presuppose it. So you see, I feel like on an atheistic worldview, there is no way you can create an objective morality. And even Sam Harris agrees with me on this.
No. I think.
Can I jump in and just ask one question? Why do you need objective morality? I'm sorry to interrupt the conversation. Why do you need objective morality?
Okay, so
because he doesn't want to be a bad person. Sorry.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to be a
But
bad person.
could it not be evolved morality, which is what we're seeing, to be honest?
I can
It's
see-
all evolved morality
I can see where you're coming from.
over time period.
What he was saying, just because this is what. Sorry, no, you come back in. So sorry.
Yeah.
This is. I do apologize. What's your name?
Rohit.
Rohit. I mean, the issue with Rohit is that when two people get involved in each other's conversations,
Yeah,
the
that's
train.
fine.
No, I'm not saying that you've done anything wrong, but I'm just going to tell you something, right? That it interrupts his train of thought, because his initial point
Sure.
was that we should unite upon a kind of truth like mathematics or science. And so when we talked about that, we said, okay, what about morality? He said morality, right? So if it's morality, then we have to, in order for it to have the same functionality, come back in.
No, it's your, yeah.
Yeah, but we're in a circle.
Okay, I'm sorry, I did
I'm sorry to interrupt.
So when we talked about that, so he sort of talked about so maths and science. If we want to make create a sort of a paradigm whereby we can all work within it and play by the same rules, so it has to attempt to be objective, right? If we don't want to create an objective morality of some sort, then in that case we can't say it would function in the same way as maths and science. Can you see what I mean? Because he gave the example of computing, isn't it? He gave the example of computing. So can you see the issue here?
Yeah. I think it's a misinterpretation of his point. Do you mind if I just do that?
Sorry, I apologize.
No. It's first of all, you incorrectly define morality.
So how do you define morality?
Well, we start in the line of discussion. We both failed to define it.
Yes. So how would you define morality?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'd use the Sam Harris model, whereas the worst suffering for all humans is at one end. Anything that helps us move away from suffering is our morality.
How could that be How could you create an objective morality from that? Because he does, as I said to you before, the reason why he believes in this model of consequentialism is because he operates on a utility presumption.
Yep.
Okay, so what is most useful for human beings is that which is most best for human beings.
Yep.
This moral presupposition cannot be substantiated or proven objectively.
Yep.
Therefore, it will be arguing in a circle to say, okay, well, we're going to employ a almost a utilitarian principle model.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
although it's a little bit different.
Yeah. Well,
I
I
mean-
think two things here. So I accidentally said yes to something I shouldn't have, which was that you said it can't be objectively found that any form of morality could be objectified. That's what you said.
Yeah.
But it could be if we had better technology, which is his argument. If we were to able to measure suffering, if we could measure suffering, then if we wrote laws that said, follow this principle, these ways of being, and you will have less suffering, that would be our morality. That
Okay,
would be our
so
code.
the presumption here, or the presupposition, is that suffering is bad, yeah? And that's, by the way, the problem of evil. The problem of evil, which is one of the main objections of atheists, is based on this presupposition. The question would be, how can you prove that suffering is bad? Point one, from an atheistic perspective, objectively. And two, how can you prove that such a thing, going back to the problem of evil, as evil exists as one objective reality?
Yeah, well, I go to Richard Dawkins, this is just like a tidbit, which is that sometimes you can ask the wrong questions. If you like ask, what does a rainbow smell like? Or I was trying to do this. You can ask the wrong questions.
Yeah.
But just don't. You were saying about objectifying. How can you prove that suffering is objectively? Oh yeah, there we go. That is the human flaw. That your human flaw. To get back onto position. Your human flaw is that you crave certainty, and you don't want to be floating about.
But flaw, the word flaw, once again, is something which relies on some kind of morality to define. So how can you prove that's a flaw? Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's not your fault.
It's my human flaw.
Yeah, but like you wouldn't ask that question if you were a different person.
I don't understand.
You wouldn't ask that question if you were a different person. You think that question has validity, but it doesn't mean anything.
Okay, I mean, one can say that about almost anything or any statement that anyone makes.
Yes, that's the thing. We have to raise above our ground and then like float and then like encapsulate our ways of being.
Okay, I accept, but let's go back to your point. Richard Dawkins, you mentioned him. He's another person who doesn't believe in objective morality. Yet, yeah. This is what I find interesting about Richard Dawkins. Richard Dawkins, listen to me, right? I mean, if you watch, I go on YouTube sometimes, and I see some things like my recommended videos list, and it's like Richard Dawkins, right? I click it, and he's like having an argument with a Muslim, yeah? And then to really catch the Muslim out and to attack the Muslim, finish off the Muslim, he says something like, oh, so what's the Islamic punishment of apostasy? And you know, the Muslim is shaking up a little bit, he doesn't know how to answer him or whatever, yeah? Okay, hold on. I mean, Richard Dawkins, if you read his God Delusion, he admits to the fact that there is no objective morality. And by the way, he's caricaturing the Islamic model of apostasy and the whole thing, ridda, and how it all works. But let's assume that his model is exactly what he believes it is. So if someone becomes Muslim, then this believer, he's trying to pull out or pluck out the non-Muslim, that you have to kill him, right? In any case, in any situation. That's what the kind of caricature that he wants to present for Muslims. Which isn't, by the way, obviously it's completely caricatured, it's not true. But then that's one of his main arguments against Muslims when you click on the videos, right? You'll see it online. The issue is, he can't even prove that, had that been the case, that would be a bad thing, objectively. So it's a ridiculous argument. That's why actually Richard Dawkins, it's interesting you mentioned his name. As a biologist, okay, his credit is where credit is due, yeah? He might be a really good biologist. But as a philosopher, I find that he's probably one of the weakest. He's got a really weak philosophy, incredibly weak. I mean, look how easily we could just identify his weakness.
Don't you think there's a point to it? Basically, what he's trying to say, the objective morality which is being mentioned in Quran, it can't be right because it's actually saying that for apostasy you're killing somebody.
But how can you prove that? Okay,
in this day and age,
yes,
that objective morality doesn't really
but this day and
make
age,
sense.
Okay, I see where you're coming from, Rohit.
So I think that maybe is his point.
Yeah, that is his point. You're absolutely right. You're completely right. That is his point. But the question is, in the first place, how can you prove that anything is right and anything is
irrespective
wrong?
of his belief? The belief of the Muslims or
no, let's just assume that what he believes is right, yeah? Let's assume that exactly what he believes about Islamic apostasy is correct, which I don't believe he understands. I think he's got a weakness in understanding apostasy and Islam, religion and philosophy. He's good at biology, that's where he should stay. But no, seriously, he's good at biology. That's
I don't think he's read much of.
I'm not really. I mean, I haven't looked into his biological works.
Jump in?
But just to sort of, yes, you can. But I'll just finish this question. Sorry.
Yeah.
This is the point. The day and age, the sociological time frame, cannot be a measure for true or valid or morality. You can't say that just because today we think that's correct. In 1933, when Hitler was elected as, not Hitler was elected, but when the Nazi Party was elected, if you will, there was a majority Nazi Party election in 1933, in the March elections in Germany. that's what the German people, a lot of the electorate wanted. Now, if we go back to that kind of reasoning, so okay, if they went and said the same thing, and today that's what we like, then therefore you have a very fluctuating morality. So you can't prove morality in a scientific way, or in a mathematical way. So he can't say that, okay, because Muslims believe in whatever it is that they may believe in, that therefore Islam is wrong. It's not even an argument. It's an emotional argument. That's what it is. It's an emotional argument which appeals to, by the way, Western supremacist thought. And I'll tell you why. Because he has already assumed a Western self-congratulations. So he's congratulated himself as a Westerner. The Enlightenment period is correct. Yeah, he's self-aggrandizing, and he thinks that we all ought to basically the rest of the world ought to resume the Western man's image. We all have been built or created in the Western man's image. So everyone has to comply by Enlightenment morality. Although, according to his own philosophy, you can't even substantiate Enlightenment morality.
I think
Sorry, I've been talking for a while now. It's his time, yeah.
To go off his point, you said something about you can't objectify the Quran either. So your need for this objectification, all that's happening in this conversation is I'm advocating for scientific objectification. You're advocating for what?
So do you believe in scientism as a paradigm, as a way to know the world in a complete sense?
Well,
Because you said scientific objectivism. Yeah. So how would that work? Do you believe that science is a means by which and through which we can find certainty in every aspect of life? That's what you were alluding to before.
Yeah. Well, this question has got like a couple of hooks, a couple of baits. I would say we all got first person perspective, haven't we?
Yeah.
And that's quite solid. We can't get away from that. But yeah, then science and rationality is, in my opinion, by far the greatest thing.
So do you think that we can find out the truth of morality, of the world around us using these methods, science?
If we define what morality is, which Sam Harris did, which I agree, which is to move away from suffering, then yes, we can use science to not objectify, because what you're trying to do, which I believe is wrong, is you're trying to root our thoughts into like reality, so as if. But that's just wrong. So all we can do is make a bubble by which we all confirm it to be true.
Is science a way we can find out the truth about the world?
Yes.
In a certain way?
Yes.
Okay, if that's what you believe in, then I'm going to tell you some things and I want you to explain them to me, alright?
Okay, go on then.
Number one, science, using the scientific method, you cannot prove anything mathematical. Because science and maths are two different paradigms. Number two, using the scientific method, you cannot prove that science itself is certain. Because the science itself is underpinned with philosophical underpinnings.
Yes.
You cannot examine those philosophical underpinnings using the scientific method.
No.
Number three.
Well,
Can I just one more?
I think you're on 4, but go on.
Number three. Science cannot objectify or reason morality. You cannot use the scientific method to churn out what is a true morality or what is a false morality.
Okay.
That's 3. I can give you one more, which is really a trump card. Number 4. There is a presupposition of science that rationality and empiricism are true. Science cannot prove those presuppositions to be true.
Yeah. Okay. So
how can you solve those issues before we can continue?
Yeah.
Because you can't say that it can give us certainty without proving it in the first instance.
I like them 4. They're good. They're very good questions. I just got to compute. Yeah, so
it's fine.
Just give me a minute.
I think it's
quite a good place, mate.
Your brain's not a computer. What do you mean you've got a computer?
Number 2 was the most interesting, which is all rationality of philosophical underpinnings, which almost like invalidate it, yeah? But, see, you've asked like very big questions, yeah? And we got a crowd, I'm on the spot. I got to try and give you back these answers. Cameras
That's
on.
speaker's corners for you, right?
Yeah.
That's nice.
The camera's on.
No, but you're a nice gentleman. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, genuinely.
No. I mean,
I think you're a sincere person. I think the way you've spoken to me is open-minded. So what I'm saying is is scientism, or the idea that you can objectify things with science, has serious limitations. Let me go forward and just say one more thing, yeah?
Well, I've already got 4 that I'm trying to work out.
Okay, fine. I'll give you some time to think about that.
Yeah. To progress the conversation, I'm going to give 5. Give a 5th one.
Do you want me to give you a 5th one?
Yeah.
Well, now you get me to think about things, you know?